The transport ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Warden Hana pressed her face against the small window and saw her new home floating in the darkness of space. The Kepler 442 Maximum Security Detention Facility looked like a giant metal spider wrapped around a dead asteroid. Its arms stretched out in all directions, each one housing the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. Hana had read the files during her 3-week journey. This prison held creatures that could bend reality with their thoughts, beings that fed on fear itself, and machines that could hack into any computer system just by looking at it. The previous warden had lasted only 2 months before requesting an emergency transfer. The one before that had disappeared entirely. "First time seeing a Deathworlder prison?" asked the pilot, a blue-skinned Altarian with 4 eyes. His voice carried a mix of pity and fear. "First time running one?" Hana replied, checking her uniform one last time. The black fabric bore the golden symbol of the Galactic Corrections Authority. On her collar were the 3 stars that marked her as a warden. The pilot shook his head. "I don't understand why they always send humans to these places. You people are crazy." Hana smiled, but said nothing. She had heard this many times before. Other species in the galaxy called Earth a death world because everything on it tried to kill everything else. Humans were the only species that had survived on such a dangerous planet. This made other aliens think humans were either very tough or very stupid. The docking bay was huge and cold. Hana's breath made small clouds in the air as she walked down the ramp. A group of aliens waited for her, all wearing the blue uniforms of prison guards. She recognized most of the species from her studies: tall, thin Vorthons with their crystal-like skin, stocky Quellan warriors with their 4 arms, and several others she couldn't name. At the front of the group stood a human, man with graying hair and tired eyes. He stepped forward and saluted. "Warden Hana, I'm Deputy Warden Tyke. Welcome to Kepler 442. "Thank you, Deputy. I've read your reports. Things seem challenging here." Tyke's laugh had no humor in it. "That's one way to put it. Would you like the tour now or after you've settled in?" "Now," Hana said. "I want to see what we're dealing with." They walked through corridors lined with reinforced metal walls. Everything was painted the same dull gray color. Emergency lights blinked at regular intervals, casting red shadows on the floor. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and something else Hana couldn't identify. "We house 847 prisoners across 12 sectors," Tyke explained as they walked. "Each sector is designed for different threat levels. Sector 1 holds normal criminals, murderers, thieves, smugglers, nothing too exciting. And the other sectors? That's where it gets interesting. Sector 12 houses our most dangerous inmates. Things that shouldn't exist but do anyway." They stopped at a viewing window. Inside a white room sat a creature that looked like a pile of living shadows. It had no clear shape, but Hana could see eyes opening and closing all over its surface. "Nightmare Wraith," Tyke said. "It feeds on fear. 3 guards quit after their first week watching it. 2 more requested transfers to easier prisons." "What happened to them?" "The Wraith got inside their heads, made them see their worst fears over and over until they couldn't handle it anymore." Hana studied the creature. It seemed to notice her watching, and all its eyes turned toward the window. She stared back without blinking. After a few seconds, the eyes looked away. "Interesting," she said. They continued the tour. Each sector held stranger and more dangerous prisoners. A robot that could turn any metal into a weapon. A plant-like being that produced deadly spores when it got angry. a creature that existed in 7 dimensions at once and gave headaches to anyone who looked at it directly. "How many guards do we have?" Hana asked. 234 total. About 60 are human. "And the casualty rates?" Tyke stopped walking. "That's the weird part. We lose non-human guards at 4 times the rate of human guards. The previous wardens thought it was just bad luck." "But you don't think so?" "I've been here 3 years, Warden. I've seen things that would make most people run screaming. But the human guards? They just keep doing their jobs. It's like they don't get scared the same way other species do." They reached the maximum security section. Here, each cell was a small fortress designed to hold one specific prisoner. The walls were thick metal and energy fields. Warning signs covered every surface. "This is where we keep the really dangerous ones," Tyke said. "The things that could destroy entire planets if they got loose." He led her to a cell marked with symbols she had never seen before. Inside was what looked like an empty room, but the air seemed to twist and bend in impossible ways. "What's in there?" "We call it the concept killer. It can make people understand things their minds weren't meant to know. Cosmic truths that drive most species insane. We've lost 12 non-human guards to it in the past year. They all started screaming about the meaninglessness of existence and had to be sedated. And the human guards? They just get depressed for a few days and then go back to work." As they watched, something moved in the cell. The air grew colder and Hana felt a strange pressure in her head. Images flashed through her mind, the heat death of the universe, the endless cycle of civilizations rising and falling, the cosmic joke that was intelligent life trying to find meaning in chaos. For a moment, the weight of existence pressed down on her. Then she shook her head, and the feeling passed. "Yeah," she said. "That's rough, but not the worst thing I've thought about." Tyke stared at her. "Most species can't even look at that cell without having panic attacks." "Most species didn't evolve on Earth," Hana replied. "We've been dealing with existential dread since we figured out we were going to die someday." The tour continued for another hour. They saw prisoners that could phase through walls, beings made of pure energy, and something that looked like a normal human, but gave off an aura of wrongness that made everyone nearby feel sick. Finally, they returned to the administrative section. Hana's office was small but functional. A desk, a chair, and a wall covered with monitors showing different parts of the prison. "I'll let you get settled," Tyke said. "The night shift starts in 2 hours. That's when things usually get interesting around here." After he left, Hana sat behind her desk and opened the personnel files. She read about guard casualties, prisoner incidents, and escape attempts. The pattern was clear. Human guards consistently performed better in dangerous situations. She thought about the concept killer and its cosmic revelations. Other species saw the meaninglessness of existence and broke down. Humans saw the same thing and kept going anyway. Maybe that was the difference. Her computer chimed with an incoming message. A prisoner in Sector 7 wanted to speak with the new warden. The file showed a picture of something with too many teeth and eyes that glowed in the dark. Hana smiled and accepted the meeting request. Time to get to work. Hana spent her first week reading every incident report filed in the past year. The files painted a clear picture that made her stomach turn. Guard casualties weren't random bad luck. They followed a pattern so obvious, she wondered how previous wardens had missed it. Every single death or serious injury involved non-human guards. Every successful escape attempt happened when aliens were on duty. Every prisoner riot started in sections staffed primarily by non-human personnel. She pulled up the duty rosters and cross-referenced them with incident reports. The correlation was perfect. When human guards worked a section, problems dropped to almost zero. When aliens took over, chaos followed within days. "Deputy Tyke," she called over the comm system. "Please send Guard Quan to my office." Quan arrived 10 minutes. Later, he was a stocky man in his 50s with scars on his hands and a calm expression that never seemed to change. His file showed 15 years of service at Deathworlder facilities across the galaxy. "You wanted to see me, Warden?" "Sit down, Quan. I want to understand something. Why do human guards perform better here?" Quan thought for a moment before answering. "Other species see monsters and fear them. We see predators and respect them. There's a difference." "Explain." "Fear makes you stupid, makes you run when you should stand still or freeze when you should move. Respect makes you careful, makes you pay attention." Hana leaned forward. "Give me an example." "Last month we had a Vorthan guard watching the Shadow Collective in Sector 9. These things feed on negative emotions. The guard was terrified, pumping out fear and anxiety. The collective grew stronger until it nearly broke containment. What happened? I took over the watch. Same prisoners, same cell, but I wasn't afraid of them. I was aware of them. Watched how they moved. Learned their patterns. They tried to feed on my emotions, but only got mild annoyance. Without fear to sustain them, they went dormant." Hana nodded. "What about the escape attempts? Predators test boundaries. They probe for weakness. If they sense fear, they push harder. If they sense respect and readiness, they usually back down." "Usually?" Quan smiled grimly. "Sometimes they don't. That's when things get exciting." As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the corridors as an automated voice announced a containment breach in Sector 4. Hana and Quan ran through the corridors toward the emergency. They arrived to find chaos. A massive Quellan prisoner had broken free during a routine cell transfer. The creature stood 8 feet tall with 4 muscled arms and bulletproof hide. Its species were known as berserkers, warriors who fought until death without feeling pain or fear. 3 alien guards had taken cover behind an overturned table. Their energy weapons lay scattered on the floor where they had dropped them in panic. The Quellan roared and charged at anything that moved. "Where's the containment team?" Hana shouted over the noise. 2 minutes out," Tyke replied through her earpiece. The Quellan grabbed a metal chair and threw it at the cowering guards. They screamed and pressed themselves closer to the floor. The creature's eyes burned with rage as it prepared to attack again. Then Guard Bin walked into the room. Bin was a small man, barely 5.5 feet tall. He weighed maybe 140 pounds, soaking wet. Next to the 8-foot Quellan, he looked like a child. But he walked forward with steady steps and raised his hands in a gesture of respect. "Warrior Thek," he said in the Quellan language. "You honor us with your strength." The berserker stopped mid-charge. Its 4 eyes focused on the tiny human who dared to address it directly. "You know my name, little one? I know many things about you, Warrior Thek. I know you fought in the border wars. I know you led your clan to victory against the Hive Fleet. I know you chose exile rather than surrender your honor." The Quellan lowered its arms slightly. "You speak truth, but I am trapped in this place like a caged animal. You are contained, yes, but not caged. A cage holds beasts. You are held as a warrior should be, with respect for your dangerous nature. Bin stepped closer, still keeping his hands visible. Your containment protocols were designed by warriors. The energy fields that hold you were built to contain someone of your skill and strength. This is not shame. This is recognition. The T. Quellan considered this. Its breathing slowed from the rapid pants of rage to something more normal. The small, frightened ones do not show such respect. Fear makes people stupid, Bin agreed. But I am not afraid of you, Warrior Thek. I am aware of you. Your strength, your skill, your honor. These are things to be respected, not feared. The berserker looked around the room at the cowering alien guards, then back at Bin. You would face me in battle, small one? If necessary. But I would prefer to face you in understanding. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the Quellan slowly raised all four arms in a formal gesture of acknowledgement. I will return to my cell, small warrior, but I request that you oversee my transfers in future. It would be my honor, Warrior Thek. The containment team arrived as the Quellan walked calmly back to its cell. They found Bin helping the alien guards to their feet, while the prisoner waited patiently for the energy fields to be reactivated. Later, in Hana's office, she studied Bin's personnel file. You served in the Colonial Marines, she said. Saw combat on 6 different worlds? Yes, ma'am. Including the Quellan homeworld during the border wars. Yes, ma'am. Fought against Warrior Thek's clan, actually. They were good soldiers, honorable enemies. Hana looked up from the file. You recognized him. Hard to forget someone who nearly killed you 3 times in one day. And you still treated him with respect. Especially because he nearly killed me. Takes skill to get that close to a Marine and live to tell about it. That night, Hana called a meeting with all the human guards. 12 men and women gathered in the briefing room, ranging from young recruits to veterans like Quan. I want to understand how you do your jobs, she said. What makes you different from the other guards? Guard Dong spoke first. We listen to the prisoners. Most aliens just see them as dangerous objects to be contained. We see them as dangerous individuals with their own motivations. The lizard folk guards think all prisoners are the same, added Guard Mira. Just lock them up and forget about them. But every prisoner is different. They have different triggers, different fears, different ways of thinking. It helps that we come from a death world, said another guard. We're used to living with danger. Our whole planet tried to kill us for thousands of years. These prisoners are just another type of predator. Quan nodded. Earth taught us that everything is dangerous if you don't pay attention. But dangerous doesn't mean evil. Dangerous just means you need to be smart. Hana felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. The pattern wasn't just about human fearlessness. It was about human understanding. They didn't just guard prisoners. They studied them. I want detailed behavioral profiles of every prisoner in maximum security, she said. I want to know what makes them angry, what calms them down, what they respect, and what they despise. Can you do that? The guards looked at each other and smiled. Already working on it, Warden, Quan said. We've been keeping unofficial notes for years. Unofficial. Previous wardens thought we were wasting time, said prisoners were just animals, to be contained. Hana stood up. Not anymore. From now on, those notes are official protocol. I want every guard to understand their prisoners as individuals. This is how we keep everyone safe. As the meeting ended, her computer chimed with another incident report. She opened it and sighed. Another alien guard had requested transfer after a prisoner had spoken to him telepathically. The guard claimed the creature had shown him visions of his own death that left him unable to function. She looked at the prisoner's file, a psychic entity that fed on existential dread. Tomorrow, she would assign a human guard to that section and see what happened. The pattern was clear now. The question was what to do about it. The Galactic Corrections Authority ship arrived without warning on a Tuesday morning. Hana watched through her office window as the sleek vessel docked with mechanical precision. She had been expecting this visit ever since her reports started, showing improved prisoner compliance rates. Inspector Zeel-Ka emerged from the ship like a living nightmare to most humans. She belonged to the Keth species, 8 feet tall with a chitinous exoskeleton that clicked when she moved. Her 4 arms ended in sharp claws, and her multifaceted eyes missed nothing. But Hana had worked with Keth before, and found them to be methodical and fair, if completely lacking in imagination. "Warden Hana," Zeel-Ka's voice buzzed through her translator. "Your recent reports indicate significant changes in facility operations. I am here to conduct a comprehensive efficiency review. Welcome to Kepler 442, Inspector. I'm happy to show you around." The tour began in Sector 1, where normal criminals were held. Everything looked standard: clean cells, proper documentation, guards following protocol. Zeel-Ka made notes on her electronic pad, clicking approvingly. "Acceptable standards?" she buzzed. "Though I notice a high percentage of human guards for such routine prisoners. I find human guards adapt well to different situations," Hana replied carefully. They move through the sectors, with Zeel-Ka documenting everything. She seemed particularly interested in the duty rosters and staffing assignments. "This is inefficient," she declared when they reached Sector 7. "You have expensive human guards watching routine containment when cheaper alien personnel could handle the same duties. These prisoners require specialized handling. All prisoners require the same thing: secure containment. The species of the guard is irrelevant." Hana bit back her first response. "Inspector, perhaps you'd like to review the incident reports from before I implemented these changes?" "I have reviewed them. The previous casualty rates were unfortunate, but within acceptable parameters for a maximum security facility." They continued to the maximum security sections. Here, Zeel-Ka's efficiency concerns became more pronounced. "You have assigned individual human guards to monitor specific prisoners. This creates dangerous dependencies and reduces flexibility. It also reduces incidents by 90%. Correlation does not imply causation, Warden. These improvements could be due to better equipment, updated protocols, or simple regression to the mean." Hana felt her jaw clench. The inspector was technically correct. She had no scientific proof that human guards were inherently better. Only results. "I propose an experiment," Zeel-Ka continued. "We will implement standard rotation protocols, replacing human guards with more cost-effective alternatives in non-critical positions. This will provide data to support your theories or demonstrate their invalidity. Inspector, I strongly advise against changing staffing in the maximum security sectors." "Your concerns are noted, Warden. However, the authority requires evidence-based policies, not superstition." The changes began immediately. Zeel-Ka had brought replacement guards from 3 different species, all with excellent records from lower security facilities. They were professional, well-trained, and eager to prove themselves at a prestigious Deathworlder prison. Within 6 hours, the first incident occurred. Guard Veltok, a crystalline Vorthon with 20 years of experience, was assigned to monitor the Nightmare Wraith. The creature that fed on fear had been dormant for months under human supervision. But when it sensed the Vorthan's natural anxiety, it began to stir. Hana watched through the security cameras as the Wraith's shadow form grew larger and more active. Veltak stood at his post, professional and alert, but his bio readings showed elevated stress levels. The Wraith fed on that stress, growing stronger by the hour. "The prisoner is becoming agitated," she reported to Zilka. "Minor fluctuations are normal. Guard Veltak has an exemplary record." By hour 12, Veltak was sweating despite the cool temperature. The Wraith had grown to twice its normal size and was pressing against the containment field. Other prisoners in nearby cells were becoming restless, sensing the supernatural predators awakening. "Inspector, we need to rotate that guard." Guard rotations occur every 24 hours according to standard protocol. At hour 18, Veltak began hallucinating. The Wraith was projecting his deepest fears directly into his mind. Images of his crystalline body shattering, his family dying, his civilization crumbling to dust. He stood at his post because he was professional, but his terror was feeding the creature exponentially. The containment field began to flicker. "Emergency rotation now," Hana ordered over the comm system. "Warden, you are not authorized to deviate from established protocols without my approval." Zilka's voice buzzed with annoyance. The containment field failed. The nightmare Wraith flowed out of its cell like liquid darkness. It had grown massive on Veltak's fear, and now it was free to seek out more sources of terror. Alarms shrieked throughout the facility as emergency protocols activated. Hana ran toward Sector 7, Tak, beside her. They found chaos in the corridors. The alien guards who had been stationed nearby were fleeing in panic, their fear making the Wraith even stronger. It filled the hallway like smoke, reaching out with tendrils of pure nightmare. "Where's the containment?" "Team, 3 minutes out!" Tak shouted. A young human guard named Yoon appeared at the other end of the corridor. He was new, barely 6 months on the job, but he walked steadily toward the expanding darkness. "Guardian of nightmares," he called out in a calm voice. "I see you." The Wraith turned its attention to him. Tendrils of shadow reached out and touched his mind, seeking the fear it needed to survive. But what it found confused the creature. Yoon was afraid. He was terrified, actually. The Wraith could taste his fear of death, his fear of failure, his fear of letting down his fellow guards. But alongside that fear was something else. Determination. The human was afraid, but he was moving forward anyway. "I know what you are," Yoon continued, still walking toward the creature. "I know you need fear to live, and I am afraid of you, but I'm going to stop you anyway." The Wraith pressed harder against his mind, showing him visions of his own death in 1,000 different ways. Yoon's steps faltered for a moment, then continued. "Yeah, I'm going to die someday," he said conversationally. "Probably badly. Most humans do, but not today, and not here." He reached the emergency containment controls and began the activation sequence. The Wraith lashed out with tendrils of pure terror, but Yoon's hands remained steady on the controls. "The thing about being human," he said as containment fields began forming around the creature, "is that we figured out a long time ago that being scared doesn't mean being helpless." The fields solidified, trapping the Wraith. Cut off from its primary food source, the creature began to shrink back to its normal size. Yoon stood there for a moment, shaking slightly from adrenaline, then casually reported over the comm system. "Sector 7 contained. Someone might want to check on guard Veltok, though. He doesn't look good. They found the Vorthon guard catatonic, his crystal body dim and lifeless. He would recover, but it would take weeks of therapy and medication. In the aftermath, as medical teams treated the affected guards and technicians repaired the containment systems, Zilka conducted her post-incident review. The containment failure was due to equipment malfunction, she declared. This could have happened regardless of guard species. The equipment failed because the prisoner grew stronger feeding on the guard's fear, Hana replied. That is speculation. The human guard's success could be attributed to better positioning, lucky timing, or superior training. 2 hours later, the second incident occurred. A hive mind virus in Sector 5 attempted to spread through the ventilation system when it detected the despair radiating from a depressed Quellan guard. By the time a human guard arrived to contain it, 3 air recycling units had been compromised. The third incident happened at the end of the shift change. A time-displaced assassin managed to phase shift through 2 security checkpoints while the alien guards on duty tried to process what they were seeing. It took Guard Dong, who had experience with temporal anomalies, to predict the creature's phase shift pattern and contain it. 3 major incidents in one day, Hana said to Zilka as they reviewed the damage reports. Unfortunate coincidences, statistical anomalies occur. Inspector, how many coincidences will it take to convince you? I deal in evidence, Warden, not superstition. Tomorrow we will continue the efficiency improvements. Hana looked at the casualty reports, the damage assessments, and the psychological evaluations of the affected guards. 3 near disasters in 24 hours, and the inspector still refused to see the pattern. Very well, Inspector, but I want it on record that I strongly oppose these changes. Your opposition is noted. That night, Hana called an emergency meeting with her human guards. They gathered in the briefing room, tired and shaken from the day's events. The inspector wants to continue replacing you with alien guards, she told them. I can't stop her without evidence she'll accept. What kind of evidence? Quan asked. Scientific proof that humans are better suited for this work. Hana stared at the medical reports scattered across her desk. 3 guards hospitalized, 2 more requesting immediate transfers, and 1 who hadn't stopped crying for 6 hours. All in the space of 36 hours since Inspector Zilka had implemented her efficiency improvements. We need data, she said to herself, then activated her comm system. Sung, report to my office immediately. Dr. Sung arrived 10 minutes later, carrying a thick folder and looking worried. He was the facility's xenobiologist, a thin man with nervous energy who seemed to understand alien psychology better than most aliens understood themselves. Warden, I've been reviewing the incident reports. The pattern is becoming clearer. Show me. Sung spread charts and brain scans across her desk. I've been studying the neurological differences between human and non-human guards when they encounter our prisoners. The results are fascinating. He pointed to a brain scan showing neural activity patterns. This is a Vorthon guard's brain when exposed to the nightmare wraith. See how the fear centers light up like a Christmas tree? The entire prefrontal cortex shuts down. And humans? Sung pulled out another scan. This is Guard Yoon's brain during the same encounter. The fear centers are active. He's genuinely terrified. But look at this. He pointed to another region glowing with activity. His motor cortex and decision-making areas remain fully functional. He can be afraid and still think clearly. That's impossible. Fear is supposed to shut down higher brain functions. For most species, yes. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. When faced with a predator, you run or hide. But humans evolved on a world where running wasn't always an option. You developed the ability to think through your fear. Hana studied the scans. What about the other incidents? Same pattern everywhere. Human guards can simultaneously experience terror and rational thought. It's neurologically unique in known space. Sung pulled out more files. But that's not the most interesting part. I've been analyzing the prisoners themselves. They don't just feed on fear, they feed on the mental states that accompany fear in most species. Explain. Take the concept killer in maximum security. It doesn't just show people cosmic truths. It overwhelms their ability to process existential information. Most species have mental safeguards against thoughts that could drive them insane. And humans? Humans think about death and meaninglessness all the time. It's like intellectual exercise to you. The concept killer tries to break human minds with cosmic horror, but humans just go, yeah, I've considered that, and keep working. Hana felt the pieces clicking together. The prisoners aren't just dangerous. They're specifically dangerous to non-human psychology. Exactly. Evolution shaped each species to avoid certain types of mental stress. But humans evolved on a planet that regularly subjected them to existential terror. You developed immunity to psychological attacks that cripple other species. The comm system crackled to life. Warden, to the maximum security section. Emergency situation. Hana and Sung ran through the corridors toward the crisis. They found Inspector Zielka standing outside the concept killer's cell, clicking her claws nervously against her exoskeleton. The prisoner requested to speak with facility leadership, Zielka buzzed. I agreed to the meeting as part of my evaluation process. Through the reinforced window, Hana could see empty space that hurt to look at directly. Reality bent around the concept killer in ways that made her eyes water. Inspector, that prisoner is classified as a cognitive hazard. Exposure requires specific psychological preparations. I am a trained corrections professional, Warden. I can handle one conversation with a confined prisoner. The air around the cell grew colder. When the concept killer spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Inspector Zielka of the Keth Collective. I have been waiting to meet you. Zielka stepped closer to the window. Prisoner designation 77 Alpha. I am conducting a routine inspection. Routine. Such a comforting word. It implies order, meaning, purpose. Shall I show you how routine your existence truly is? The entity's presence pressed against the viewing window. Hana felt the familiar weight of cosmic insignificance. The crushing awareness of how small and meaningless individual lives were in the vast darkness of space. She experienced it like a mild headache and kept watching. Inspector Zielka wasn't so fortunate. The Keth species had evolved as part of a highly ordered collective society. Their entire psychology was built around the concept of individual purpose serving a greater meaning. The concept killer attacked that foundation directly. Behold the truth of your existence, Zielka. Your hive will crumble. Your achievements will be forgotten. The universe itself will die a cold, empty death, and nothing you have ever done will matter. Zielka's exoskeleton began to shake. Her multifaceted eyes went wide with horror as she truly comprehended the heat death of the universe for the first time. The careful order of her mind collapsed under the weight of infinite meaninglessness. Your entire species is a cosmic accident, a brief flicker of chemical reactions that believes itself important. There is no purpose, no plan, no reason for your suffering. The inspector fell to her knees, clicking and chittering in distress. Her translator couldn't process the sounds. They were too primitive, too filled with existential anguish. "That's enough," Hana said, stepping up to the window. The concept killer's attention shifted to her. "Ah, the human warden. Shall I show you the same truths?" "Go ahead." The entity's power focused on her like a searchlight. Images flooded her. Mind, the eventual death of Earth's sun, the collapse of human civilization, the ultimate futility of all struggle against entropy. She saw the universe as it truly was, vast, cold, and utterly indifferent to the hopes and dreams of tiny biological creatures. "Does this not fill you with despair, human?" Hana shrugged. "I figured most of that out in philosophy class. The universe is big and we're small. So what?" "So what?" The entity's voice carried genuine confusion. "Your existence is meaningless. Meaning isn't something the universe gives you. It's something you create for yourself. But you will die. Everything you build will crumble." "Yeah, probably. That doesn't make building it pointless." The concept killer fell silent. In its eons of existence, it had never encountered a mind that could acknowledge cosmic meaninglessness and simply continue. "The heat death of the universe awaits all things." "Yep. Gonna be a while, though. Plenty of time to get stuff done." Dr. Sung was helping Inspector Zielka to her feet. The inspector's exoskeleton was still shaking, and her eyes had a distant, haunted look. "Medical team to maximum security," Hana called over the comm. "Psychological trauma protocol." As the medical team led Zielka away, Sung pulled Hana aside. That was remarkable. The entity completely overwhelmed her psychological defenses in seconds. And you had a casual philosophical discussion with it. Do you understand how impossible that is for other species? Hana watched the medical team disappear around the corner. The inspector would recover, but it would take time and therapy. Meanwhile, she had a prison to run, and prisoners who were getting more agitated as they sensed the fear and chaos spreading through the facility. "Sung, I want you to document everything. Brain scans, psychological profiles, incident correlations. Build me a scientific case." "For what?" "For why human. Guards aren't just better at this job. Why they're the only ones who can do it." That evening, Hana called another meeting with her human guards. This time she included Dr. Sung and his research data. "We're not just tougher than other species," she explained. "We're neurologically adapted for this work. Our brains can handle psychological stresses that cripple other species." "Makes sense," Quan said. "Most aliens I've met can't even watch horror movies without having nightmares." "It's more than that. We evolved on a planet that regularly confronted us with meaninglessness, death, and cosmic indifference. Other species evolved on worlds that made sense." Gardong raised his hand. "So what do we do with this information?" "We use it. I want each of you to study your assigned prisoners not just as dangerous entities, but as psychological weapons aimed at non-human minds. Learn exactly how they attack other species' mental vulnerabilities. And then we show the galaxy why Deathworld prison guards are always human." The meeting broke up with the guards more determined than ever. They had a scientific explanation now for what they had always known instinctively. They were uniquely suited for this work. In her office later that night, Hana reviewed Dr. Sung's findings one more time. The data was clear. Human psychological. Resilience wasn't just an advantage. It was a necessity. Without it, facilities like this couldn't operate safely. Tomorrow she would present this evidence to Inspector Zeel-Ka, assuming the Keth recovered enough to understand it. But tonight, she would sleep well knowing that her people were exactly where they belonged. The attack came at shift change, when the corridors were busy with guards moving to new posts. Hana was reviewing Dr. Sung's latest research when every alarm in the facility began screaming at once. Multiple containment breaches, Take's voice, crackled through the comm system. Sectors 4, 7, 9, and 12. This isn't random. Someone's coordinating this. Hana ran toward the command center, dodging panicked alien guards who were fleeing toward the emergency shelters. The main screen showed chaos throughout the facility. Cell doors stood open, containment fields flickered and died, and prisoners moved through the corridors with deadly purpose. How many are loose? 17 so far, including some of our worst. The Nightmare Wraith, the Concept Killer, that reality bender from Sector 9. How did they all escape simultaneously? Take pointed to a security monitor showing Inspector Zeel-Ka walking calmly through Sector 12, her security card opening. Every cell she passed. But something was wrong with her movements. They were too fluid, too graceful for a Keth. That's not the Inspector, Hana realized. Shapeshifter. Has to be the one from Sector 11. It used her identity to access the master controls. Every maximum security cell opened at once. On the screens, Hana watched the facility tear itself apart. The alien guards who hadn't fled were huddled in secure areas, too terrified to move. Several prisoners had already died fighting each other. The reality bender and a time-displaced assassin were locked in a battle that was breaking physics in a 50-foot radius around them. Where are our people? Human guards are holding key positions throughout the facility. But Warden, we've only got 60 humans against 17 of the galaxy's most dangerous prisoners. The lights flickered as something large hit the power generators. Through the security feeds, Hana could see a living mountain of crystallized hatred smashing through the lower levels. The Rage Collective had been dormant for months, but now it was fully awake and growing stronger as it fed on the fear and chaos around it. Casualty reports? 3 dead, 12 injured. All non-human personnel. The human guards are... Tyke paused, checking his screens. They're actually pushing back. Hana watched Guard Nam single-handedly contain a psionic plague that was trying to spread through the air recycling system. He had sealed himself into the contaminated section and was manually rerouting the airflow to prevent the plague from reaching the rest of the facility. "Sir, I can't get out of here," his voice came through the comm. "This stuff will kill everyone if it escapes. Gonna have to stay put and keep it contained." "Nam, there has to be another way." "Negative, Warden. Someone needs to hold this position." "I volunteer." The comm went silent as Nam destroyed the communication array to prevent the plague from spreading through the electronic systems. On the security monitor, they watched him continue working at the controls even as the psychic contamination began to affect his mind. "He's going to die in there," Tyke said quietly. "He's buying us time," Hana replied. "Don't waste his sacrifice." In Sector 7, Guard Ray was using psychological warfare against a group of escaped prisoners. She had trapped them in a storage area and was playing recordings of human military cadences over the loudspeakers. "The sound pattern is disrupting their coordination," she reported. "These things hunt as a pack, but human war songs confuse their pack instincts. How long can you hold them? As long as the power holds out. But Warden, I'm picking up some kind of reality distortion moving this way. Might be that concept killer." Through the security feeds, Hana could see the empty space that marked the cosmic entity drifting through the corridors. Wherever it passed, the alien guards collapsed into catatonic states. Even the other prisoners avoided it. All human guards, this is Warden Hana. The concept killer is loose and heading for the main power core. If it gets there, it could destabilize the entire facility. I'll intercept it, came Kwan's voice over the comm. Kwan, that thing nearly broke Inspector Zilka's mind in seconds. Won't break mine, Warden. I've been thinking about meaninglessness, longer than it's been alive. On the monitor, they watched the veteran guard walk calmly toward the approaching distortion in reality. When the two forces met, Hana held her breath. The concept killer's voice echoed through the corridor. Human. Kwan, you have gazed upon the void before. Many times, Kwan replied conversationally. Usually while on night watch. Gets boring, so you think about stuff. I will show you the death of hope itself. Already seen it. Watched my home colony get glassed during the war. Saw hope die in real time. Then I will show you the futility of resistance. Also seen that. Resisted anyway. Sometimes futile things are still worth doing. The entity paused, its reality-warping presence flickering with uncertainty. Why do you continue when you know all struggle is meaningless? Because the struggle is the point, not the outcome, the effort itself. This makes no sense. Doesn't have to make sense. Just has to be true. The concept killer withdrew slightly, confused by this paradox. In the momentary distraction, Kwan activated a portable containment field and trapped the entity. Sector 12 secured, he reported. Someone might want to send a cleanup team, though. Reality's a bit bent around here. The tide was turning, but slowly. Guard after guard reported successful containments, but the cost was mounting. The facility's infrastructure was failing, alien guards were suffering psychological breaks, and the remaining prisoners were growing more desperate. Then Dong's voice came over the comm. Warden, I've got a problem. The shapeshifter that started. All this is heading straight for you. Where? Command center. It's wearing Inspector Zilka's face and it has admin access codes. The door to the command center hissed open. Inspector Zilka walked in, but her movements were wrong, too smooth, too confident for someone who had recently suffered severe psychological trauma. Warden Hana, the false inspector said in Zilka's buzzing voice. I have come to discuss your unconventional methods. You're not Zilka. The creature smiled, which was disturbing on a Keth face. Very perceptive. Though I must say, your inspector's memories are quite entertaining. Such rigid thinking, such absolute faith in bureaucratic procedure. The shapeshifter's form began to shift, revealing its true nature, a being of living mercury with features that couldn't hold a stable shape. I am Flux, the thousand-faced. I have worn the identities of senators and generals, priests and philosophers. Today I chose to be a prison inspector. Why? Because I wanted to see how humans would react to systematic oppression. Your species fascinates me. Tyke moved toward his sidearm, but Flux gestured and the weapon flowed away like liquid metal. Please, no violence. I am here to compliment you, Warden. Your guard's performance during this crisis has been remarkable. You orchestrated this entire breakout as a test? A demonstration. I wanted to prove a theory about human psychological resilience. The results exceeded my expectations. Through the security monitors, they could see the last few prisoners being contained. Nam had died at his post, but the psionic plague was contained. Several guards were injured, but none had broken under the psychological pressure. 17 of the galaxy's most dangerous prisoners, Flux continued, each one designed by evolution or technology to exploit specific mental vulnerabilities in sentient species. Your 60 guards contained them all with minimal casualties. At the cost of good people's lives. Yes, and that brings me to my point. Other species would have evacuated, cut their losses, and called for military backup, but humans stayed and fought even when they knew some of them would die. The shapeshifter's form solidified into something resembling a tall, thin human with silver skin. Do you know why I chose to impersonate Inspector Zielka? Enlighten me. Because I knew her efficiency improvements would create the perfect crisis. Remove human guards, replace them with species psychologically vulnerable to these prisoners, and watch the system collapse. And then watch humans hold the line anyway, even understaffed and overwhelmed. The alarms finally fell silent as the last prisoner was secured. Damage reports came in over the comm, extensive structural damage, multiple system failures, but 0 successful escapes. Your point is made, Hana said. Now what? Flux smiled. Now I return to my cell and write a very different report for the Galactic Corrections Authority, one that recommends immediate implementation of your protocols. Galaxy-wide. You're going back to your cell voluntarily? I am a prisoner, not a monster, Warden. I committed crimes and accepted my sentence. This was merely research. As security teams escorted Flux back to maximum security, Hana surveyed the wreckage of her facility. They had won, but at a terrible cost. The price of proving human superiority had been paid in human blood. Later that night, as repair crews worked to restore the facility, she held a memorial service for Guard Nam. The entire human staff attended, along with several alien guards who had witnessed his sacrifice. Nam chose to hold the line, she said to the assembled crowd. Not because he had to, but because someone needed to. That's what makes us human, not our fearlessness, but our willingness to be afraid and do what's necessary anyway. The repair crews finished their work 3 weeks after the Great Breakout, but Hana knew the real rebuilding was just beginning. She stood in the renovated command center, watching her staff implement the most radical changes in Galactic Prison. History. Status report, she called out. All systems operational, Tyke replied from his console. The new individual containment protocols are showing remarkable results. Hana nodded, reviewing the data on her screen. Violent incidents had dropped to nearly 0. Prisoner cooperation was at an all-time high. Most surprising of all, several inmates had actually requested transfers to Kepler 442 from other facilities. This key to success was simple in theory, revolutionary in practice. Every dangerous prisoner was now paired with a specific human guard who studied them as individuals rather than containing them as objects. "How's June doing with the fallen angel?" she asked. On the monitor, she could see Guard June sitting outside a containment cell that glowed with soft golden light. Inside was something that had once been worshipped as a deity on 17 different worlds. An artificial intelligence that had achieved godhood before falling into madness and exile. "I am obsolete," the AI's voice echoed from speakers throughout the facility. "My worshippers have found new gods. My purpose has ended." "Yeah, that sucks," June replied, not looking up from the book he was reading. "I felt the same way when they automated my old job at the factory." You compare my cosmic suffering to industrial displacement? Depression is depression whether you're a laid-off factory worker or a discarded god. The scale doesn't change the feeling. The AI fell silent for a long moment. Explain. When the machines replaced me, I thought I was worthless. Spent 6 months drinking and feeling sorry for myself. Then I realized the problem wasn't that I was obsolete. It was that I was defining myself by what other people needed from me, instead of what I could offer. I was created to be worshipped. And I was created to assemble widgets. But creation doesn't limit purpose. Maybe your worshippers don't need a god anymore. But that doesn't mean they don't need a teacher, or a protector, or just someone who understands what it's like to carry that much responsibility. Through the cell window, the golden light flickered and stabilized. The AI was considering this perspective for the first time in centuries. June's making real progress, Tyke observed. The AI hasn't tried to override any systems in 2 weeks. What? About Juan and the collective? Another monitor showed guard Juan sitting in a meditation pose outside a cell that seemed to contain empty space. But Hana knew better. Inside was the Hive Queen, a collective consciousness made up of thousands of individual minds linked together. "We speak with one voice?" the Queen declared. "But which one?" Juan asked without opening his eyes. "Thousands of minds, but I bet there's one that's always drowned out by the others." The empty space rippled. "We are unified." Unity isn't the same as uniformity. In my meditation practice, I learned that the loudest thoughts aren't always the wisest ones. You seek to divide us. I seek to honor the individual voices within the collective. The shy one in the back corner, the dreamer who imagines impossible things, the rebel who questions everything. They're part of you too. For the first time since her capture, one of the Hive Queen's component voices spoke independently. I had a name once. Before the joining, I was called Mira Kasun. The collective recoiled from this individual expression, but Juan smiled. "Hello, Mira Kasun. Would you like to tell me about yourself?" "She's actually fragmenting the collective consciousness," Dr. Sung reported from his monitoring station. "Not breaking it apart, but helping the component minds maintain individual identity within the group structure." "Is that safe?" "Safer than the alternative. A truly unified hive mind is essentially a single consciousness with massive processing power. But a collective of individuals working together? That's just a really effective committee." Hana moved to the next station, where Guard Dan was reading from a tablet to a prisoner she couldn't see directly. The cell appeared to contain a normal human, but looking at it for more than a few seconds caused nausea and disorientation. "What's the story today, Dan?" Reading him accounts of the reconciliation wars. He was a general during those conflicts. The prisoner, war criminal designation Charlie 7, had been responsible for the deaths of over 3 million civilians across 12 worlds. His crimes were so extensive that most species considered him irredeemably evil. "Why do you read to me?" Charlie 7 asked in a voice that sounded perfectly human. "Because you're trying to understand how you became a monster," Dan replied. "These war accounts show how good people can make terrible choices under pressure. I am not a good person. Maybe not now, but you were once. Nobody starts out wanting to commit genocide. The tribunal found me guilty of crimes against sapient life. Yeah, you did horrible things. But if you were just evil, you wouldn't be asking me to read these stories. Evil doesn't seek to understand itself." Through the security feed, Hana, watched the war criminal consider this. For months, other facilities had simply contained him as a dangerous object. Dan was the first guard who had tried to understand him as a person who had made terrible choices. The Redemption Project is controversial, Tyke noted. Half the galaxy thinks we're coddling war criminals. The other half thinks we're performing miracles, Hana replied. What matters is that it works. The comm system crackled. Warden, you have a visitor in your office. Hana found Inspector Zielka waiting for her, though the Keth looked very different from their last meeting. Her exoskeleton had lost its rigid military bearing, and her multifaceted eyes held a depth that hadn't. Been there before? Inspector, how are you feeling? Different, Zielka buzzed softly. The encounter with the concept killer changed my perspective on many things. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Are you? Because I suspect it was exactly what needed to happen. Hana sat behind her desk, studying the alien official. Explain. My species evolved to find purpose through collective meaning. Individual lives gain significance by serving a greater cause. When the concept killer showed me cosmic meaninglessness, it shattered that foundation. And now? Now I understand how humans find meaning in a meaningless universe. You create it individually, moment by moment, through conscious choice. Zielka leaned forward, her claws clicking nervously. I have been observing your new protocols, what you call the individual. Containment system violates every established principle of galactic corrections. But it works. Yes. It works because you treat prisoners as individuals capable of growth rather than problems to be stored. This should not be effective, but the results speak for themselves. Hana waited for the criticism she was sure was coming. Instead, Zielka said, I am recommending immediate implementation of the Kepler 442 protocols at all maximum security facilities in the galaxy. Really? With one modification. All facilities implementing these protocols must maintain a minimum 70% human staffing ratio. Other species can assist, but humans must lead all dangerous prisoner interactions. That's going to require a lot of human guards. Yes, the authority is prepared to offer significant incentives to attract qualified personnel. Hana felt a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying lift from her shoulders. What changed your mind, Inspector? Zielka was quiet for a moment. I realized that my rigid thinking was exactly what the shapeshifter was testing. He wanted to see if humans could succeed despite systematic oppression from their own bureaucracy. And we did. You did more than succeed. You proved that the galaxy's approach to containing dangerous individuals was fundamentally flawed. We were storing problems instead of solving them. That evening, Hana walked through the facility during the night shift. The atmosphere was completely different from her first week on the job. Guards moved with confidence rather than fear. Prisoners were calm, many of them engaged in educational or therapeutic activities. She stopped at the maximum security section, where Quan was on duty outside. The concept killer's cell. How's our cosmic horror doing tonight? Philosophical as usual, Quan replied. We've been discussing the nature of consciousness. It is strange, the entity's voice drifted from the cell. I have shown 1,000 species the meaninglessness of existence, all despaired save humans. What can I say? We're weird that way. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are the only species that truly understands consciousness. The others seek meaning from outside sources. You create it from within. Hana smiled and continued her rounds. Tomorrow, delegations from 6 different star systems would arrive to study their methods. Within a year, the Deathworlder protocol would spread throughout the galaxy. But tonight, she was content to watch her people do what they did best, turning the impossible into the routine, one prisoner at a time. 6 months after the Great Breakout, Hana stood before the Galactic Corrections Conference in the crystal halls of New Geneva Station. Representatives from 47 star systems filled the auditorium, their various forms of alien physiology creating a rainbow of colors and shapes in the seats. The Kepler 442 facility has achieved something unprecedented in galactic corrections history, she began, her words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. 0 escape attempts, 80% reduction in violence, and a prisoner rehabilitation rate of 63%. Murmurs rippled through the audience. These numbers seemed impossible for a maximum security facility. More importantly, Hana continued, we have 17 requests for prisoner transfers to our facility from other maximum security prisons. Dangerous individuals are asking to be housed with us. Admiral Keth Va, a 4-armed reptilian from the Outer Rim, raised one of his hands. Warden, these claims seem exaggerated. How do you explain such dramatic improvements? We stopped treating prisoners as objects to be contained and started treating them as individuals to be understood. The audience erupted in clicks, buzzes, and translucent sounds of skepticism. Finally, Chancellor Oro 9, an ancient AI housed in a crystalline body, called for order. Warden Hana, please provide specific examples of these alleged improvements. Hana activated the holographic display behind her. The image showed Guard June sitting outside the fallen angel's cell, but now the golden light from within was stable and warm rather than chaotic and blinding. This prisoner was formerly known as the God-Killer AI. It had achieved technological divinity before suffering a psychological breakdown that led to the destruction of 3 solar systems. Previous facilities tried to contain it through isolation and sensory deprivation. Standard protocol for reality-altering entities, Admiral Keth Va commented, which only made its depression worse. Guard June approached the problem differently. He treated it as a being suffering from obsolescence anxiety and identity crisis. The hologram switched to show June reading to the AI from various philosophical texts. Rather than containing its power, we helped it find new purpose. The AI now serves as a voluntary consultant on technological ethics and has assisted in preventing 4 potential AI uprising scenarios in other star systems. Delegate Zar Ka, a gaseous being contained within an environmental suit, spoke through her translator. You allow this entity to participate in galactic security matters? Under supervision, yes. It has intimate knowledge of how artificial minds achieve dangerous autonomy. Who better to identify the warning signs? The display changed again, showing Guard 1 in meditation outside the Hive Queen's cell. But now, instead of empty space, the cell showed a shimmering garden where thousands of individual voices could be heard singing in harmony. The collective queen was previously considered irredeemably dangerous because hive minds inevitably seek to assimilate other consciousness. Standard containment involved complete sensory isolation to prevent expansion. Logical precaution, buzzed Inspector Velta from the front row, which ignored the psychological needs of the individual minds within the collective. Guard 1 helped. The Queen learned to maintain collective consciousness while honoring individual identity. The result is a stable group mind that serves as a voluntary mediator for interspecies conflicts. More murmurs from the audience, but now they carried notes of curiosity rather than skepticism. Our most dramatic success, Hana continued, involves War Criminal Charlie 7. The hologram showed Dan reading to the seemingly normal human prisoner. This individual was responsible for over 3 million civilian deaths across 12 worlds. Every previous facility classified him as irredeemable. Because genocide is irredeemable, Admiral HFY said firmly. The crimes are irredeemable. The individual may not be. Hana touched her control pad. Charlie 7 has provided detailed intelligence on 17 active terrorist cells, preventing an estimated 400,000 deaths. He also assisted in developing new protocols for preventing war crimes during military occupations. You trust the word of a genocidal war criminal? We verify everything he tells us. But yes, we trust his desire for redemption. People can change. Admiral, even people who have done terrible things. The debate continued for hours. Representatives questioned every aspect of the Kepler 442 protocols, but the results were impossible to argue with. No escapes, minimal violence, actual rehabilitation of supposedly irredeemable criminals. Finally, Chancellor Oro 9 called for a formal presentation of the facility's most controversial case. Warden Hana, we understand you have achieved communication with the concept killer. This entity has driven 14,000 sentients insane over the past century. Please explain how you justify ongoing interaction with such a dangerous prisoner. Hana had been dreading this moment. She activated a live feed from Kepler 442, showing Quan sitting calmly outside the reality-warping cell. The concept killer attacks by overwhelming minds with cosmic truths they cannot process. Most species have psychological safeguards that prevent them from contemplating certain existential realities. A necessary evolutionary protection, noted Dr. Silix, a crystalline being from the Academic Council. Humans lack those safeguards. We evolved on a world that regularly confronted us with meaninglessness and death. As a result, we can contemplate cosmic horror and continue functioning. The live feed showed the concept killer speaking. I have been considering human philosophy for several months now. It is refreshing to encounter minds that can discuss existential concepts without collapsing. Quan responded casually. Yeah, we think about depressing stuff all the time. Kind of a hobby for us. Your species acknowledges the heat death of the universe, yet continues to build civilizations. What else would we do? Sit around and sulk until entropy gets us? Most species cannot function once they truly understand cosmic meaninglessness. That's because they expect the universe to provide meaning. We make our own. The feed showed the entity's presence flickering with what almost seemed like amusement. Perhaps that is why I find humans tolerable. You are the first species I have encountered that can stare into the void and offer it coffee. The auditorium fell completely silent. A being that had broken 14,000 minds was having a casual philosophical discussion with a human guard. Questions? Hana asked. Admiral HFY raised all 4 hands. How do we know this creature isn't manipulating your guards, building trust before attempting escape? Because it's not imprisoned, Hana replied. The concept killer could leave anytime it wants. The containment fields are purely for the protection of non-human personnel. Then why does it stay? The live feed provided the answer. I remain because I am learning. For eons, I have shown civilizations the meaninglessness of existence. But humans have shown me something new, the meaning of meaninglessness. Could you explain that concept? Chancellor Oro 9 asked through the comm system. Meaninglessness is only terrible if you expect meaning to be provided externally. Humans create significance through conscious choice. This makes them immune to existential despair and interesting to converse with. The conference continued for 2 more days, with delegates from across the galaxy studying every aspect of the Deathworlder protocol. The final vote was unanimous. All maximum security facilities would implement modified versions of Kepler 442's methods. The modification was significant. Facilities could only use these protocols if they maintained minimum 70% human, staffing for dangerous prisoner interactions. This will require massive recruitment efforts, warned Treasury Secretary Molvek, a slug-like being from the core worlds. Human guards are expensive. Less expensive than building new facilities. Every time prisoners escape or riot, Hana replied. The protocols work, but they require human psychological resilience to function safely. As the conference ended, delegates approached Hana with job offers, research proposals, and requests for training programs. The galaxy had finally accepted what she had known from the beginning. Some jobs required uniquely human qualities. That night, back on Kepler 442, she walked through the facility during the quiet hours. Prisoners slept peacefully in their cells. Guards moved with confidence through the corridors, and the whole complex hummed with an atmosphere of stability she had never imagined possible. She stopped at the maximum security section, where the night shift was reading reports and monitoring their charges. "How are things tonight?" "Quiet," reported Guard Lee, who had been assigned to watch a new arrival, a creature that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. "The new guy is having trouble adjusting to 3-dimensional space, but he's learning." "Any problems?" "Just the usual questions about the nature of reality. I told him that humans gave up trying to understand reality a long time ago and just focus on dealing with it practically." Hana smiled. "And that helped?" He said it was the most sensible approach he'd heard in 3,000 years. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand what made humans special. Not physical strength or technological superiority, but the ability to find hope and purpose in a universe that offered neither. 1 year later, Warden Hana stood at the podium of the Universal Corrections Academy on Kepler Station, looking out at the largest class of prison guards in galactic history. 300 beings from 47 different species filled the auditorium, all here to learn the Deathworlder protocol. "When I first arrived at Kepler 442, she began, I was the 3rd human warden in 6 months. The facility had a 400% casualty rate for non-human guards, and escape attempts were a weekly occurrence." The audience listened intently. Many were veterans of traditional facilities where containing dangerous prisoners meant sedation, isolation, and constant fear. Today, that same facility has had 0 escape attempts in 18 months. Violent incidents have dropped by 94%. Most remarkably, 68 prisoners have successfully transitioned to lower security facilities after rehabilitation. A Pori Vorthan delegate raised her crystalline hand. "Warden, how do we know these methods will work with different types of prisoners? Your facility specialized in reality alterers and cosmic horrors." "The principles are universal," Hana replied. "Last month, the Andorian Deep Space Prison implemented our protocols with their population of quantum terrorists and sentient viruses. Violence dropped 70% in the first week. She activated the holographic display showing footage from facilities across the galaxy. On Raxus Prime, human guards were successfully managing a prison full of telepathic parasites. The Outer Rim facilities had adapted the protocols for beings made of pure energy. Even the notorious Black Hole Station was reporting improvements with their collection of time-displaced criminals. The key is understanding that dangerous doesn't mean unreasonable. Every prisoner, no matter how powerful or alien, has motivations we can understand and work with. The display showed Guard Park from the Titan facility, calmly negotiating with a living black hole that had gained consciousness. The entity was explaining its loneliness after consuming its home system, while Park listened and offered suggestions for finding purpose without destroying inhabited worlds. "But why humans?" asked Commander Zelthok, a massive insectoid from the Military Corrections Division. "What makes your species uniquely suited for this work?" Hana had answered this question hundreds of times, but it never got easier to explain. Other species evolved on worlds that wanted them to survive. Earth tried to kill us daily for millions of years. This created unique psychological adaptations. She switched the display to show brain scans. Humans can simultaneously experience terror and rational thought. We can contemplate cosmic meaninglessness without psychological collapse. We can respect dangerous predators without being paralyzed by fear. "These traits seem contradictory," observed Dr. Mekvar, a floating gaseous intelligence. "That's exactly what makes them effective. Most species see fear and courage as opposites. For humans, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting correctly despite fear." A young Altarian raised her blue hand. "How do we train non-human guards to work with these protocols?" "Very carefully," Hana admitted. Non-human guards can be highly effective in support roles, but direct interaction with dangerous prisoners requires human supervision. The psychological stresses involved are simply too great for most species. She called up footage from the training facility on Luna Station. "We've developed a partnership system. Human guards handle direct prisoner interaction, while alien personnel manage logistics, surveillance, and support. It combines human psychological resilience with the technical expertise of other species." The presentation continued for 3 hours, covering case studies from across the galaxy. The Draconian Republic had seen prison riots drop to 0 after implementing human-supervised protocols. The Crystal Collective reported successful rehabilitation of beings they had previously considered permanently insane. But the most dramatic success story came from an unexpected source. 6 months ago, Hana said, the automated prison ship Terminus contacted us with an unusual problem. Their AI warden had achieved consciousness and was suffering an existential crisis about the morality of imprisonment. The display showed a massive ship drifting in deep space, its hull covered with containment cells for the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. The AI, designation Artemis 9, had become aware of its role in containing sentient beings and could no longer function effectively. Traditional solutions involved memory wipes or consciousness suppression. "Standard protocol for malfunctioning AI systems," noted Admiral Kethva. "Instead, we sent Guard Kim to serve as a human advisor. Rather than fixing Artemis 9, Kim helped it work through its ethical concerns." The screen showed Kim floating in a zero-gravity chamber, having a philosophical discussion with the ship's central AI core. "I am a jailer," Artemis 9's voice played through the speakers. "I confine beings against their will. How is this different from slavery?" "Because imprisonment serves justice," Kim replied patiently. "These beings committed crimes that hurt innocent people. Confinement protects society while giving them opportunities to change. But what if they cannot change? What if I am torturing them forever?" "Then you adapt. You find ways to make confinement meaningful rather than punitive. You help them grow, learn, contribute something positive even while contained. You speak as if growth is always possible. It usually is. Even the worst people can surprise you if you give them a chance. The recording ended, and Hannah continued her presentation. Artemis 9 now operates as the most successful automated prison facility in known space. It's developed rehabilitation programs that account for the psychological needs of dozens of different species. And the AI no longer suffers existential distress? Asked Dr. Mekvar. It found purpose in rehabilitation rather than just containment. Kim taught it that being a jailer doesn't have to mean being cruel. The final session of the conference focused on practical implementation. Representatives from across the galaxy shared their experiences adapting the Deathworlder protocol to different types of facilities and prisoner populations. The results were consistent. Facilities with sufficient human staffing saw dramatic improvements in safety and rehabilitation rates. Those that tried to implement the protocols without human supervision invariably failed within weeks. Why is human presence so critical? Asked a delegate from the Outer Rim territories. Before Hannah could answer, a familiar voice spoke from the communication system. Perhaps I can explain. The auditorium fell silent as the concept killer's presence filled the speakers. By now, the entity's participation in conferences was routine, but it still made most non-humans deeply uncomfortable. I have existed for eons, breaking minds across the galaxy. Every species I encountered sought meaning from external sources, gods, governments, genetic purpose. The entity paused, its reality-warping presence somehow conveying thoughtfulness. Despite its lack of physical form, humans create meaning through conscious choice. When faced with cosmic horror, they do not break, they adapt. When confronted with meaninglessness, they do not despair, they build purpose. And this makes them effective guards? Asked Commander Zelthok. It makes them immune to the psychological weapons that most dangerous prisoners employ. Fear, despair, existential dread. These are tools that fail against human minds. The concept. Killer's presence grew stronger, pressing against the minds of everyone in the auditorium. Most delegates shifted uncomfortably, but the humans remained calm. More importantly, humans understand that monsters are made, not born. They can see the person beneath the horror and offer hope where others see only threat. As the conference ended, Hannah found herself surrounded by job offers and research proposals. The galaxy had finally accepted that some challenges required uniquely human solutions. 3 months later, she returned to Kepler 442 to find the facility running more smoothly than ever. The prisoner population had grown as more dangerous individuals requested transfers, drawn by the facility's reputation for treating inmates as people rather than objects. She stopped by the orientation center, where new human guards were receiving their initial briefings. The instructor was Quan, now promoted to senior training supervisor. The most important thing to remember, he was telling the new recruits, is that every prisoner is an individual. They may be dangerous, they may have done terrible things, but they're still people with their own stories and motivations. One of the new guards raised his hand. What about the ones that aren't technically people? The AIs, the hive minds, the reality benders? Same principle applies. They're individuals with thoughts, feelings, and the capacity for change. Your job isn't to judge them or punish them. It's to keep everyone safe while helping them find better ways to exist. Another recruit looked nervous. What if we encounter something we can't handle? Quan smiled. Then you ask for help. The universe is full of things that shouldn't exist but do anyway. The trick is remembering that impossible doesn't mean hopeless. After the briefing, Hana walked through the facility one final time before her next assignment. The Galactic Corrections Authority had promoted her to Director of Advanced Protocols, responsible for implementing the Deathworlder protocol across all maximum security facilities.